would be great. Introduce yourselves and tell us what you did in this communal effort of a beautiful movie.
My name is Kestrin Pantera, and I conceived, wrote and directed it.
Conceived as a
I'm Breeda Wool, and I'm in it, and I am an executive producer, and I co-wrote it.
Yay!
I'm Eva Kim. I produced. I was craft services. I was an office PA and general set mother.
I'm Tammy Sanchez, and I also produced it with Eva and did all of those things as well.
She supervised post-production as well.
Yeah, all around Band-Aids and like all the things with on the post. We also have Matt Friedman, who's our composer. Original music, and John Bernstein, who's another one of our producers here. And Michael Melina in the back, who's also our producer. Yeah, and we all drove up a mountain to be here for this amazing festival. That's so exciting, kicking it off. I feel like this is such a thrill to be up on this. My ears are still popping.
I'm popping just like vibes. Usual. Well, one of the reasons we wanted to start with this film was because it is such a communal effort, and that really sort of spoke to the spirit of the festival, which has been equally a communal effort. So how did, because firstly, you said it was kind of inspired by a dramatic family event. Is that, are we allowed to be party to that?
Yeah, we can discuss it. We had a lot of family talks. We really talked a lot about it as a family before we decided to make this movie. And one of my family members was a rock and rollin', shit kicking, backstage drug dealing dude who sold drugs at a bar called the Continental Club in Austin, Texas. And everyone knew him as like the guy who looked like Santa Claus and sold drugs.
Wait, I think I used to date that guy.
You probably did. You dated my father-in-law? Amazing. Does that mean you're my... No way. And at the end of his life, we all came together, and a lot of things that we didn't know were revealed, but like right after the point where we could really discuss it. So there were a lot of truths untold or maybe overshared, and everyone lost their shit. And when you get a lot of smart, funny people around for a traumatic and tragic event, sometimes it's just as funny as it is awful and sad. And then I, talked about it and cried about it for a long time, talked about it with my friends, and found out that,
yeah, we all had death in our lives. I think one of the exciting things about this movie, and which makes it so different from anything that I have ever done, is Kestrin. This is how I remember it. I saw Kestrin at a party, and I was like, hey, I'm around for a month.
That's how a lot of good stories.
Yeah. Kestrin, by the way, is she orchestrates parties that are very good. I made it sound like a sex party, but I mean, it could, never mind.
it's not a sex party. Not a cult.
It wasn't a sex party. It was a karaoke party.
It was not.
That one wasn't. It was a karaoke party. But she was like, I was like, I'm around for a month if you want to do something. And she calls me 2 days later and goes, we're making a feature film. We're doing it at Milana's house. Everybody's on board. Let's go. Can you come over tonight? Right? And like Kestrin's entire sort of style of filmmaking is build your community, build your people that you love, do other people's things, include people, don't wait for permission. That is Kestrin's largest thing. And so she saw Open Window, she had this project she wanted to do. We went there, she had a storyboard, and we all shared about our deaths. We had and we got to know each other real quick, and we went in and we shot the movie in
11 days.
11 days with one pickup, or two pickups.
Yes.
2 pickups, 11 days, and we went down the rabbit hole. And a co-writer on this is because of the nature of that, but also, you guys might not know, the entire film is improvised. So all of the dialogue, everything came out of, so we would go in and Kestrin would be like, give us a few little things, like she'd be like, this needs to happen in this scene, right? And she had sort of the hand on the larger storyline, but all of the sort of discussions about our past, the events that had occurred, actually not all the events that had occurred, but a lot of the like discussing in the minutia all came just like on the spot in the dynamics. And I feel like Melanie Hutsell, who's so awesome at this, and I don't know, as an actor, I felt like I was able to do things that I had never done before. She's basically set the stage, and then we could, I don't know,
But
thrive.
you've got, yeah, I was like, I want to, it sounds like an acting party.
It was basically an acting party. I think a lot of the times when you make a movie, you shoot the script and everyone says their lines, and then when the director and the writer feel like their ego's been validated, then they give actors permission to riff. And then they usually the editor's like, wow, this riffing is way better than a lot of the shit that you guys wrote. So they use that. So I was like, well, what if we just start with the riffing, and then we can focus in on like, we'll figure out what the shape of the scene is. We know what the shape of the scene is, and then if we have a better suggestion or a line suggestion, you just feed lines later. Because if you're editing, I have an editing background, so it feels like this joyous thing where, like, if you get everyone to contribute on a fundamental cellular level because they're bringing their life experience and they get to shape the dialogue and create from their own soul, then you have that soul on camera, and then you get to edit their soul however the fuck you want to at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So you still get...
It's a very easy collaboration to do, and then also you get to have them in the room later looking at your edit and be like, I don't know, is this good?
It's deeply fulfilling to have that kind of community. It's basically like anybody here today, if you guys had a little notion in your mind that you wanted to tell this story, and so you just like went out and did it, and like everyone got on board, and it might be a testament to just how fun it is to say yes to you. It's pretty fun to say yes, but just
Not a sex party.
not a sex party.
This is not a sex party.
Not this time.
We're just gonna keep saying that sex party until it happens.
Until
We're here
That's
all
how you
weekend.
kick off a women's film festival.
It's been that wild.
Yeah.
Eva,
It's the
you
Buckeye.
worked with the Buckeyes. I want to let the producer end speak.
That's awesome.
What do you want to know?
Well, I say the producer, and you've acted in Kestrin's movies before, and you were so good in it, and I always say it over and over again that I always want to see you in another film, because you were so great in it.
It's
But
very sweet.
how did
Your
it...
check is in the mail, Tab. Thanks.
I actually wrote Nurse Cool
please,
for Eva. I wrote that part for Eva,
Oh, really?
but she wanted to produce.
I wanted to produce, and anyway, Cole needed to be in that movie. He was just so perfect, so gentle.
How did it... So if it was inspired by your dad, why the gender flip?
Well, it seemed like there were a lot of, I don't know, it seemed like a great opportunity to gender bend it and get an actress who had done a lot of stuff that I knew from watching on TV. I was like, I feel like we can find someone who would be up for a leading role of a matriarch, of a flawed matriarch, and it just seemed a lot more fun to make it female gaze and female centered as opposed to like our daddy issues. It just felt like a more fun story to tell and to cut and to create and to cast.
Was the producing process as communal as the acting process?
I mean, it was pretty fast and furious, like from my perspective. I know that this story had been germinating for some time, and I just kind of wanted to speak to the fact that it was always going to be a woman in your mind. It was very much always going to be pretty close to the version of the story that you see on the screen right now, and that had been cooking for some time. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, it was really mostly about stepping back, talking about that first initial meeting, and we all made a dish, and we sat down at Milana's and we had dinner, and we talked about all of the death that we had experienced in our lives, and kind of bonded over this trauma and how everyone had these, singular experiences, but that everyone has shared something, everyone had that very, very deeply and personally in their lives. And from that point on, it just felt like a very safe and open space to create. So I really just was there to facilitate meals and just holding space for these beautiful people to give us what you see, which is, I think, it absolutely extraordinary.
Eva was also patient zero of what I call the manic episode that is this movie. So she was the first person that I conned into doing it. So it really was that phone call with Eva that gave me the confidence
There was
to
no
think I
con,
could
I
pull
knew
this.
who you were, I said yes.
Okay. Eva was the first person I called, and she was the first person to say yes, and that gave me the confidence to ask everyone else. And Tammy's Genesis story is also very fascinating. That I called her the night before while I was going to Sylmar to pick up a bag of worms, and pulled over on the side of the highway, and both of them, Eva had lost her father, and Tammy had very recently lost her sister, and Breeda had just lost her dad, and Sam and Breeda's dad died the same day, the same year, so 1 year apart, but the same day. It was really weird. But anyways, Tammy, I'll let Tammy tell the story, because I just called this woman a stranger out of the blue, and then she ended up basically lugging me a mountain for a year and being my soulmate.
I didn't lug you up this mountain, no, she lugged herself.
Different.
I got a phone call speaking to Breeda's kind of description of Kestrin's community building. I just got a phone call out of the blue from someone picking up worms from this, but in my mind it was like the side of the road. It probably wasn't. I was just like,
It was the side of the road.
it was in my imagination. Kestrin was just digging worms out of the dirt with her hands while like holding the phone on her shoulder. And she's like, I don't know you. I have no idea who you are. I'm Kestrin Pantera. I'm making a movie, and your partner said you might want to work on it. Because he said you like to support women in film, and I'm a woman in film. I don't know, what are you up to? You want to come to set? She was like, maybe you can come hang out. And I was like, yeah, sure. You need PAs? And she was like, yeah, I guess, sure. You want to come be a PA? I don't know, whatever.
Cut to Tammy running the entire project for a year.
So yeah, that was my first and last PA gig I've ever had.
I think having a name like Kestrin Pantera is a good icebreaker. If you're calling out someone, hi, it's Kestrin Pantera, I'm like, are you a superhero? I'm on board.
It really was. It was partially
It's a
that.
conversation starter. I'd also like to just very briefly add, this has been brought up a couple times as we've done circuits, but that the female-centric energy of this project, I mean, no disrespect to the men who we love and respect very, very deeply, but there is something to be said for really the majority of the department heads and the majority of our cast and crew were made up of women. Our cinematographer is a woman, produced by women and men alike.
You must have quite a close relationship with your DP, because I always think it must be quite a special relationship when you're acting and directing.
People think that there's a lot of complication and thought that goes into it, but it was one of those things where Mina and I shot 35 episodes of a micro-documentary series, and from the first shot, it was just on. Mina is a silent, gentle genius who's just a pleasure to be around. She laughs at all my jokes, and vice versa. And then you look at her shit, and you're like, what? So she was just very well equipped she was like, all right, so we're gonna do Swingles, we'll cover that, this is what we're gonna do, cool. And then was pretty much silent there wasn't really that much discussion. It was just a very effortless, full of ease, like hire Mina Singh, y'all, because she is just a genius. We didn't light, really. We used all natural light. That's how we were able to cross shoot and shoot a feature in 11 days. And it was just like a love note after, looking at the dailies and being so impressed by her ability to capture movement. And Jeff Powers also came on to co-DP, when she shoots like Netflix shows and works for the WB, so she's busy, but she squeezed us in. And some other amazing camera operators also joined us, so.
It's about when you said swingles, I thought we should make a dating app for people in the film industry.
Yeah, and it's not a sex party.
What are the really...
It's actually an incredible idea,
Yeah.
Tabitha. I mean,
One of the
Swingles,
great things
yeah.
about the film is the great different characters and how the beautiful way all the different characters kind of mesh in the movie. Were they kind of established like on the page, as they say, or did those characters kind of evolve through that improvisational process?
I think it depends on who you ask, because I had an outline that I OCD'd out on for years, and then I don't know if anyone actually read the outline, because I gave it to everyone, and then no one seemed to read it, and then we would just start from scratch.
Yeah, I don't think we. I
But
feel like the
what they
time
did
that
was
we-
my outline.
Yeah,
I
but
read the
they-
outline. I read the outline.
They found it on the, it happened accidentally.
I felt like from the time that we came in to the time that we shot, it was like if we had read it, we still wouldn't. It wouldn't have. It was like you just had to like dive in. Everyone had to just be like, "We trust you. Let's go." And then you were like, "This is what's happening." There was like a lot of stuff.
It seemed like every character wrote their own thing from their unique perspective, as though they were alone in a cave being artists. But then when you really cross-reference it, you're like, you did exactly the fucking outline. Like, better than, like, it was really good. But I don't know how much of each actor's process.
It was very kismet because it was sort of like I was the older sister, and it seemed like my older sister. It seemed like I can't actually tell
like
whose
the
older
greater
sisters
older
it's
sister
based on.
circuit in our
Yeah, you know.
combined family circle.
And there was a lot, and there was actually like Sam's mother, and there was like all of these sort of characteristics that we talked about while we were talking about grieving and how people responded and reacted, and you know
It was like we shared archetypes that just happened to be aligned. So I was pulling off of my life experience, and they were pulling off of their life experience, but we just happened to have the same reference in our corresponding families.
And there's certain obvious themes. You know, Sam at the end of this movie, Sam Littlefield, who plays Jude, says, you know, we both hate reality. You know, I'm just like you. We both hate reality, and it's sort of like each sibling is trying to cope with their same escapism of reality. And so, you know, we all have archetypes in our families and everything that cope with that. And when death comes around, which if we're all lucky, it happens parents first and then us. You know, when that moment comes around, like everybody's sort of personalities get the volume turned up. It all gets exaggerated. So like, you know, I feel like when I rewatch this movie, I can see like my reaction to that death. You know, everyone has sort of this similar escapism, avoidance, like, and then having, you know, being a child of human beings. Everyone, I don't know. Yeah, I guess it's all archetypes. We're just all in the same dream.
You can have one burning question, and then that's all we've got time for. So if you have got one, it better be really good. Oh, you were first. Yeah.
Alright, I have a question. I didn't see casting credited, and I thought your casting was incredible. So obviously I heard some of you guys know each other from friends, but I was just curious how that came together.
It was me. I've used casting directors for projects in the past, but usually for stuff like this, I go where the love is and the immediacy is, so.
And like, what was your, just if you had that window of 8 days or 11 days, like who was the first, you know, the people that you like got attached to it that helped and glued everything together?
I mean, it was like Eva was first, then Breeda, then it was like I talked to Milana. Yeah, Milana in her house. So it was all people that I was already hanging out with at a party that day. So everyone was a very close friend that I knew, and we'd talked about a lot of these issues over the years. So it felt a lot more like calling up your 5 best friends who you were already like just saw at lunch yesterday and being like, we should actually do this. So I booked a camera. And Cool too. Yeah, because I cast Nurse Cool the role. I wrote it for Eva. And then she was like, I want to set this one out, like, it's bringing up too much of my, like, I want to produce this one. And I called Cool, and he said yes. And it was like a 10-hour, it felt like a 5-minute window between when we were shooting and when I called him.
Just tribe, all tribe.
That's good instincts. Well, thank you so much for coming up the mountain for us. And this quite historic moment of the first.
Yeah!